Hello, my name is Marcus, and considering I'm staring right at the lens, I believe my face is also in screen, so in shot. Anyways, welcome back to Tabletop Reviews, but today I'm having a look at Wingspan, the second to last game from the solo week. What is the last one? Well, you already know. Anyways, Wingspan came out in 2019, right? Became one of the biggest sensations, currently one of the biggest games within board gaming. Before I talk about what I think of it, let's head on to the table and see how it's played, how it's set up and played. I'll learn it one day. Alright, here we are to set up Wingspan. Now I have an insert so it looks a little bit differently packed down than it would for everyone else, but at the top we have the first game. I've kept that, and a whole bunch of rule books here for everything. Those I don't need those, of course. Got a special one here. Keep that for a little bit later on. Oh, here comes his knee. Oh boy. Then we have the individual player boards, which is I'm just gonna set up for 2 players because that's what I have room for here. Each player gets one of these out in front of them. Bam. And bam. Then we have the bird tower here, which is a dice tower shaped as a birdhouse, bird tower, which you just quickly unpack, get the dice out of there, and place it in here. No, that's not the correct routine. Just gotta flip it around and put it in the correct slot here. Bam, and it's ready. Usually have it placed right here, and you can roll the initial dice now. That was not the best wing angle ever. And then you have the initial dice rolls ready there. You have the individual goal cards right here. Can you see it, or is the shine from the sun? And I think you can see it. You can shuffle those up, and you'll distribute 2 to each player, and they choose one to keep, the other one gets to the bottom of the pile. Just to show you an example. It's of course in Danish, but this is just an example. So this is, I should have rolled over, but this is a specialist in big birds. One of the things I wanted to show you is 4 to 5 birds, 3 points, 6 plus 6 bird points. This is just one of those, but you also have this one, 35% of all the cards. That says on all of them, and I think it's a very interesting thing that you get that information about how many of the cards are actually involved here. Then we have all of the eggs here, which we usually just place out. Maybe one person gets one of each, so you can just pick out the eggs whenever you want and use it on it. You have, of course, this right here with the individual player colors. So we will choose red and yellow. That's what we usually play. Each person gets, how many is it? 2 for 8 cubes of their color over to their side, this one side. Then we have a whole bunch of food. Again, we kind of distribute this evenly, and each person just gets 1. It just makes it a lot easier for to set up this insert here, but you don't have to do exactly as I'm doing. Then you have a whole bunch of bird cards. There's just so big many bird cards. Anyways, this one kind of be placed off to the side here, and then you can shuffle up the bird cards. I have 3 piles of bird cards. I can't shuffle all of them, but you'll distribute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each person. 2, 3, 4, 5 for each person. Bam, and then you will put it in the middle and flip 3 cards face up. And the rest of the cards and all the rest of the equipment you can put over to the side so it's ready in case you need more cards, in case you need. You could also do like I do here with 3 piles and then place one of each side, and then the cards will be recycled from that, so this one was here. So if this card has been removed, it's from this pile. And there's a pile here and a pile here. You could also do that, evenly distribute them. Depends on what you want to do. Anyways, you're ready now. As I said, one of the gold cards will be kept. You can go, you can kind of look here, do they match? It could be the names of the birds, it could be the size of the birds, it could be the nests of the bird. Could be anything. You can match it up, choose one to keep, the other one goes at the bottom of the pile. Then you have the birds. You choose which ones to keep and which ones to throw away. And the ones you throw away will be turned into food. So if I choose to throw these 3 away, they'll be dropped at the bottom of the pile here. And I get to pick out whichever 3 kinds of food that I want. And I'm just gonna pick 3 corn just for the purpose. It's not a great start, but it's whatever. And of course, one thing I almost forgot is, God damn it, it's these cards right here, these ones. So each round has a specific goal, and you just draw them out randomly. That's the first one, and that's the second one, and that was way too many. So that one, and there you have the very end goal. So this, in this particular example, let's have a look here. It is birds with cards behind them. That's very terrible around one goal, but whatever. Then you have X on the water, which is perfectly fine. Again, you would do this before you chose bird cards, so you also know what do I need to go look for. This is a particular type of nest with X on it, so a bird with that type of nest and X on it. And then bird cards in hand. And this one is the blue side. It's the less competitive side, so to speak, because you just, if you have 4 cards behind birds with cards behind, you get 4 points. If you have 3 eggs, you get 3 points, and everybody gets that. On the other side, the green side, the very competitive side, it's all about having the most. So you need to have the most cards behind birds with cards behind them. You have the most eggs on water, and then you get an amount of points based on that. It's a lot more competitive, a bit more fun. But that's actually just basically the setup for Wingspan and technically the European expansion, but because I don't actually, but the European expansion, all it adds is new colored eggs, some new goals. You can see it here. It says EE for European expansion. I don't even know if you can see it. Can you see it? It says EE there in the bottom. And it adds some more birds, of course, European birds. The Oceanian expansion is one I really want, but I don't have it yet. Anyways, that's the setup. How do you play? Well, you play through the cubes, so you have 8 actions, and then when the first round is over, you place one of your cubes down here, and you have 7 actions, and then you place one more here, and then you have 6 actions. So you have less actions, but you should have more birds down here. So what can you do? You could do all the things it says here. You could place a cube up here and play a bird into your bird area right here. I could do that because this bird right here on water only takes 2 corn, which I have. Bam! So that's playing a bird. You could take some food off the board. You start from the first to the right. That is, furthest to the left that has no birds. So when there's a bird card in here, for example down here, you would start here and you go leftwards. But anyways, here you just start here, take 1 food, which is the worm, for example. And then I can actually play the next bird as well for my food. And then I play this bird here, just as an example. And you can see here actually, I'm gonna take some food, I'm gonna take this corn. Bam. And then we're gonna draw a bird card. And the reason I'm doing this is because then we go leftwards and this card activates, I can throw out 1 corn to put 2 cards from the stack behind this bird. And then now I am somewhat in the lead for that one, right? So that's how you do that, and then maybe, and then this one is of course moved all the way over, and you could use the rest of yours. Re-rolling the dice tower over here. So in our playgroup, I don't actually know what the actual rule is. I could look it up, but in our playgroup we have the rule that you can re-roll it once per turn, or when it's empty. I can't remember what the actual rule is. That's just the rule we play with. I believe the actual rule is something... We need to find it. Where's the actual rule set for it? Re-rolling the dice. Re-rolling the dice. Where the hell does it say? There. Okay, no, so the actual rule is if all of the ones are the same, you can choose to do it, or if, you know, it's empty, you re-roll it. But we have a rule that you can re-roll it once per turn. So that's kind of a house rule. Anyways, yeah. So continue to use, the final one you can do in here is lay eggs. This particular one lays 2 eggs. This one's down here is switch 1 bird card for extra food. Switch any type of food for an extra egg, or swap an egg for an extra bird card. But here we just grab 2 eggs. Yeah. It's not the most sturdy thing in the world. I really need to get it glued. Anyways, put those in here. And this one, all players lay 1 egg on this type, and that's, I can play an extra one, so I would actually get 4 eggs from this action. Bang. And then I have 2 actions left, and I can decide whatever I want to do with those actions. Doesn't really matter, but it's... And you continue going, and then you count up who has the most. It's the first, second, third, whatever. And then in the end you count up points. The way you count up points is... the parents, it's actually set on... Where the hell did I put my score sheets at? Those are always helpful. Where the hell did I put my score sheets? Anyways, there they are. I always like to use these ones. But anyways, first you have birds, the points that are on the feathers here. This is 5 points. Bonus cards, did I fulfill these? I did not fulfill this one. I might have in the end. Round goals, you see all these ones here. Then you have eggs. Every egg counts and an extra point at the end. Then you have food on the cards. Again, some abilities will allow you to take, you know, a worm and put it on a card like that. That would be 1 extra point, and all the save cards below would be 1 extra point as well. And then you count all that up. The person with the most amount of points win the game. I think that was all. Let's head back to the table. So that is the setup and the gameplay of it. I feel like I was a little bit confused in that one. I don't know what happened there. But I do believe I said everything I needed to say about it. Anyways, let's talk about it. And first, of course, we talk about the game. What to think of the gameplay. Well, I think the gameplay is actually really good. Sorry about that. As I said, we have the rule of re-rolling the dice once per turn. That's kind of a rule we've added in just to change it up a little bit, because otherwise you get very stuck. But I do see where they went with the actual rule, which is if it's empty or if all the dice are the same. I do see where they went with that rule. I think it's better to just say you can re-roll it once per turn or when it's empty. I think that's a better rule. Otherwise, I think this is a really, really great game. All the other things. Building out the birds, and then I think it's the Danish translation that made it a little bit difficult to understand, but when we learned it, it was really great. I 100% blame the Danish translation. But the thing with, you know, moving the dice here, and you get 3 eggs or 4 eggs or whatever, and then you slowly move through to activate them in an order. It's very interesting, and this engine building aspect, of course, this is one of the first engine building games I ever played, but I think it's really great, and it makes you think, like, I have 2 cards to play down in this one, which do I want to play down first? Because one's action might affect the other one, and I think that's a great little mini mind map you're trying to build out here. And of course, the round goals, as you saw in that one, you can get a very terrible one with these cards on the birds on the first one. That's a terrible one to have. And the ones that I actually drew up, I was kind of lucky because they just kind of lined up to actually be capable of doing that. So it was very interesting. But otherwise, that would be a terrible one. But it's kind of the luck, you know. You can see the different ones for the 4 ones, and you can think, okay, what do I want to do? how do I want to do this with the cards, and how many do I want to get rid of to get some food, and all this, and of course the lovely bit of that every single time you do a little bit more per action because you get bird cards down, but you get less actions. Again, another, it's just a simple thing, really makes it great. It makes you like, okay, next round I have 7 actions, next round I have 6, the final one I only have 5 actions. How do I want to maximize these ones? I find that the final round is very much the same, where you just try and maximize. Sometimes you'll find that just getting those damn X is just the best in that final one. In the particular example, the final one was drawing up cards and getting some points. Maybe, you know, splitting your 5 actions between getting X and getting some cards would be the way to go for that final round because of the goals. And I find the final round to always be a little boring. But the first 3 rounds, great, building up, and you can really build up to that 4th round to have those 5 amazing actions. I've actually managed to see someone fill all 12 spaces with bird cards and filling out, getting an insane amount of points. I've seen that only ever once. It's not something you see often, but it's great when you get a lot of points and back and forth with your opponent. You can maybe think, I know where they're at, but you can't really know where they're at, and I think that's great. It's always great to be surprised by the results, so you don't sit there thinking, oh well, I've lost. So really, these gameplay aspects are great. I think I was about to talk about the components, that's not yet. But the gameplay, this aspect of building your engine and the different areas you put it in, I think it's really just some great gameplay. So let's talk about components now. You have the little cubes, and that's something that I've seen most people upgrade. Those 8 cubes, sorry, that represent your color. People always upgrade those. Okay. To be like either birds or like birdhouses or something. It's something I look into, and I'm going to upgrade it to birdhouses at some point. I don't know when, but at some point I will be upgrading it to birdhouses because those 4 cubes are kind of boring. Then you have the X. The X. They look like X. They remind you of X. Why are they different colors? Because it's just fun. So I think that's a great little component to add to it, and placing around, really putting through that one. Cards feel of high quality, and they have a specific feel to them. I won't say that the cards have a specific feel to them, but everything in the game has this specific feel. I don't know how to explain it, like it's kind of rough, but really, not like a bird feel like that, it's not a thematic, but it just has a specific feel to it, and it just feels nice. In the box you kind of have that feel, like it doesn't feel like any regular box, it has that little like smooth but rough, it's difficult to explain, it just has a feel to it, you know? It has that feel to it. Right, and in components you have a first player token. Never really been used, but it's a nice first player token, little wooden disc with the bird here. It's nice. That's about all I have to say about that one. It's a nice component. The individual boards are really nice looking. They fold out perfectly. Like sometimes these kinds of boards you have the issue that they fold up a little bit again or not straight even. These actually fold out really nicely, and when they're looked up they look like a binder. When they're closed, and then you open it up to get this feel of like a bird collector, bird watcher kind of feel. Thematic, pretty thematic, eh? Talking about themes soon enough, and I think, you know, that's about the end of it. The food tokens, of course, just wooden discs. I don't complain about it, but again, it's probably something that I'll be looking to upgrade once I get around to upgrading some of my games. Definitely. But I just think all the components in here are very nice, very high quality, very Stonemaier. Honestly, right now, in the board game right now, I associate Stonemaier with really good production, really great production, so something I always look forward to. Those are the components. Let's talk about a theme, and this is something where I have a lot to say, because a lot of people are saying it's not very thematic. What are you talking about? It's insane thematic. Insane thematic. You have the nests and the amount of eggs in there, that's incredibly thematic. With almost every bird card, it makes sense to have a nest and the type of eggs, and how many eggs to the species of bird. Where they can live makes sense. What they can eat makes sense to the species of bird. What I heard a lot of people talking about, and that, you know, that's great thematic. What I heard a lot of people talking about the eggs. So you pay eggs to get another bird down. That's just the action in game. But how can you translate that into the theme? Well, it's quite simple. If a bird lands a place and builds a nest and lays eggs, and another bird sees that, it thinks, oh, this is a good place to stay. I'm gonna freaking make my own nest here. So by seeing the eggs, the other bird wanna build a nest. And also, when an egg disappears, what happens? A new bird arrives. It doesn't make 100% sense. Of course it's not. It's a board game. But it makes a lot more sense than some people are talking about it. Just because you don't understand how nature fucking works doesn't mean it's not a thematic break. Board game, tell me that you spend all your time in here, closed curtains, playing board games rather than knowing something about nature. Because that fucking makes a lot of sense. And what are your role when you're the caretaker of this place? That's why you have the binder to note down what kind of birds are in here. The cards you had in it's like you're drawing or writing down which birds you have in this sanctuary, and what you need to make sure that the plants have it good, that the insects have it good, that the fish have it good, so that the birds when arrive have it good. It makes sense. I know a lot of people take care of nature in places. Not as much as you do in the board game. Of course not. It's a board game. You need to actually have some fun playing it. But in sense of being maybe a caretaker of your own little area to try and build a safe space for birds because you love birds, it makes sense. I know people who take care of these areas, but they do try and make sure that some plants grow and some plants don't, to make sure some insects and some species arrive there because they know stuff about this. Not as active as in the game, of course. That's because nature in real life, nature in a game is very different. But again, it makes a lot of sense if you know anything about nature. I can't say this enough. Everybody who says it's not very thematic, they don't know how nature works. If there's a nest of birds, now of course, because they want to add a bunch of different species, it's always different species. And if you see one, what's an English word for a dove? That's the only English bird I can come. Why? Totally blank on English words for birds. Anyways, a dove is there, right? Building a nest. Another dove will see that and land and build a nest because they know, okay, there's food. And then the food needs to attract the other kinds of birds because the individual nests will attract that kind of birds. Of course, in Wingspan, they want to have all the different kinds of birds. That doesn't make any sense. Some of these birds live closer to the Arctic than to other places. No, that doesn't make sense. So what? It's because it's a board game. But you can look past that and you can see how much sense it makes to how nature works and how what you can observe by going into some of these nature areas. I unfortunately don't have a lot, but I have some, and I can see this happening. I can see that, okay, the first couple of birds lay their nests surrounding not the river, it's way too big, the little the stream that we have close by. That means that they're slowly going to be more and more and more and more, because the first ones have arrived. The first ones are showing this is a place to be, so they arrive. Now again, this is geese. That was not a freaking English bird. Geese are laying the nest here and attract more geese. In this one, you have a bunch of different species. Sure, there's a thematic disconnect, but still it's very much there. And in terms of this, right, close to the river, on the field or in the forest, it makes sense. Now, you're pressing everything into a little board game to have all the different species, all the way from Alaska to freaking Croatia, right, in our European expansion. But that's just because they wanted to put a board game. It would be boring if it was only doves and geese that was in this box, right? So it's to not make it boring. But it still makes a lot of thematic sense if you know something about nature. Sorry to say, you don't know anything about nature. And we're done talking about theme. No wait, that's the wingspan aspect. Bigger birds eat smaller birds. Nothing to deny that that's thematic. And some of the abilities that the birds have, I think, make sense, and some of them are just in-game, right? Like the hunter birds, they draw a card if it's smaller underneath them, they've eaten it, makes sense. Some of the ones that put food, I believe some of them, if I remember correctly, that's my knowledge being tested here, but I believe some of them are the ones that save food for the winter, as far as I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, but again, it makes sense that they're saving it on their cards, right? Makes sense. There's some sense in it. Of course, I could be a little bit wrong about that one with the food. My knowledge is being tested right there. Anyways, Elizabeth Hargrave, the designer, put so much thought in this one. I've heard people talking about the percentages of the nests and the areas you can sleep and the food all match up in the expansions as well. That's an insane amount of work to say that there needs to be an equal amount of these nests, an equal amount of birds that eat this, and an equal amount of birds that eat 2 and 3, and that can stay in this area. That's an insane amount of work that's been put into this one to people who don't know anything, to just say, oh, it's not very thematic. It's insanely thematic. I respect the amount of work that's been put into this one. It's insane. It's insane, it's great, it's amazing. I can't wait to get Wingspan, the Asia expansion, the Oceania expansion that adds gameplay, not just more birds, but still more birds. This is so important to this game that it's so thematic, and people are just too stupid to realize. Okay, I think I'm done talking about theme. Does it lie to you? Oh, it says right on the side. 1 to 5 players, 10 years, 40 to 70 minutes. 47 minutes, about an hour. It's pretty accurate actually. I think most times it will take an hour. 1 to 5, you have 5 mats in here. Of course, like that never lies. I've played it at 1, of course. What we're talking about is 2 of 3 is probably the best. 4 is okay. 5 and 1 I don't like. Say it like that, right? 10 years and up. It's one of the ages that I respect the most actually. 10 and up, yeah. That's one of the ages that come the closest to what I would say is acceptable, yeah. And 47 minutes, I said, about an hour, fits pretty well in, you know, unless of course it's a teaching game. Always remember, the teaching game will take twice the amount of time. But it's fairly accurate. Another very well researched one. There's a lot of reason to love Wingspan, honestly. And I think it's no surprise that my final rating is a 10 out of 10. As I said, the European expansion is in here. I didn't talk much about that. It only adds eggs, purple eggs, and some more birds. That's all it adds. If I was to give it a rating, I would give it another 10 out of 10, because it's just, you know, it's more of the game. And if the game is 10 out of 10, then more of the game would still be 10 out of 10, because it doesn't change anything, it just adds more birds, right? So still a 10 out of 10, definitely for this game, and I might definitely keep it. I'm getting Oceania, I'm getting Asia as soon as they're out, I'm getting them. Stop saying this game is not thematic. And until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!